An heiress to a retail empire returns to her hometown posing as a broke college student to understand the impacts of her family's company on small businesses. She learns that the town's respected councilman, who advocates publicly for small businesses, is secretly facilitating their closure to allow her family's company to dominate. Emily Walton's rental car rolled to a stop just outside the familiar tree-lined boundaries of Willow Falls. It was a small town, the kind where everyone knew your name and your business, nestled comfortably in the crook of the Rocky Mountains. As she stepped out, the crisp autumn air filled her lungs, tinged with the earthy scent of fallen leaves, a stark contrast to the sterile skyscrapers and honking taxis of Manhattan. Emily paused, allowing herself a moment to soak in the view. The main street lay before her, charmingly outdated with its brick storefronts and hand-painted signs, promising a simpler way of life. It was here, among these quiet streets and faces from her past, that Emily hoped to find what she had lost in the hustle of her corporate life: authenticity. With a determined breath, she grabbed her backpack from the trunk. Her attire was intentionally casual: faded jeans, a simple t-shirt, and worn-in sneakers. Nothing about her screamed heir to the Walton retail empire. Here, she was just Emily, a college student researching small-town economics, or so her cover story went. As she walked down Main Street, memories flooded back. The annual 4th of July parade, the high school prom photos taken in the town square, her first job at the local diner. It was all still here, but quieter, subdued. Many of the shops she remembered were now shuttered, their windows dark, while others bore "for sale" signs that hinted at a long wait for buyers. Reaching the heart of downtown, Emily felt the weight of her mission. Her family's business, once a single store just like these, had ballooned into a national giant that threatened these very foundations. And now, armed with a mix of guilt and resolve, Emily was here to see firsthand the impact of her family's empire. She was here to help, if she could. The bell above the door jingled cheerfully as Emily pushed into "Been there, done that," the coffee shop owned by her high school friend, Sarah Turner. The warm aroma of roasted coffee beans enveloped her immediately, a stark contrast to the chill outside. "Can I help, Emily?" Sarah's voice, tinged with surprise and curiosity, cut through the low hum of other patrons. She stood behind the counter, a steaming espresso machine at her back, her smile as warm as the cup she was holding. "It's been too long, Sarah." Emily approached, her heart lifting at the sight of her friend. They embraced, a rush of shared memories briefly erasing the years apart. "What brings you back to Willow Falls? I thought you were living the high life in the city." Sarah's question was light, but Emily detected the undercurrent of tension, the unspoken acknowledgement of Emily's family name and its implications. "Just taking a break from the chaos. I'm actually here to do a bit of research on small-town economics, see how places like Willow Falls are managing these days." Emily kept her tone casual, hoping to ease into the topic. Sarah nodded, her expression turning thoughtful. "Well, you've come back at a tough time. A lot of the local shops are struggling or closing down. Ever since the big box stores started popping up, it's been hard for small businesses to keep up." The statement hung between them, heavy with implication. Emily sipped the coffee Sarah had slid across the counter, her mind racing. This was exactly what she needed to hear, yet the guilt was palpable. "It's really that bad?" "It's worse. We're hanging on by a thread. Honestly, if something doesn't change soon, I don't know if there'll be much of a town left for you to study." The raw honesty in Sarah's voice struck Emily. This wasn't just business, it was personal. People's lives and dreams were crumbling. She needed to understand more, to delve deeper into the community she had once called home, not just for her research, but to forge a path to redemption, for her family and for Willow Falls. "Maybe I can help, somehow. I'm here to learn, after all." Emily offered, her resolve strengthening. Sarah smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "I hope so, Emily. I really do." As Emily left the coffee shop, the weight of her task settled on her shoulders. She needed to navigate this carefully. Building trust would be crucial, and she had the perfect place to start: the upcoming town council meeting, where she could meet more locals and perhaps the person spearheading the corporate expansion into Willow Falls. Emily's reintroduction to Willow Falls sets the stage for her deep dive into the community's struggles, using her old connections and making new ones, all while keeping her true identity a secret. Next, we'll see her initial efforts to gather information and how the town perceives her return. As Emily mingled with the townspeople, her presence as a newcomer, or rather a returnee, began to stir a subtle buzz. Willow Falls was small. New faces, especially those from the past, didn't go unnoticed for long. Emily attended local gatherings, visited old haunts, and engaged in conversations, always mindful to present herself as a student deeply interested in the economics of small towns. Yet, her surname was a shadow that followed closely, whispered among curious locals. One afternoon, while browsing the sparse shelves of the town's old library, Emily overheard a conversation between two longtime residents. "That's the Walton girl, isn't it? Back after all these years? Wonder what she's really here for," one of them muttered, not knowing Emily was within earshot. Heart sinking, Emily realized her family's reputation preceded her, casting doubts on her intentions. She needed to tread carefully, to ensure that her actions spoke louder than her last name. It was vital to her project's success that she be seen as an ally, not an extension of the corporate force threatening their way of life. Determined to shift this narrative, Emily decided to volunteer for the upcoming Willow Falls Autumn Festival, a cherished local event. By contributing to something close to their hearts, she hoped to integrate more fully into the community and dispel some of the suspicions her arrival had aroused. Emily's involvement with the festival brought her closer to the inner workings of the town. It also gave her a front-row seat to the challenges faced by the community, from funding shortfalls to the struggle of getting volunteers. Each task she undertook was an opportunity to connect, to listen, and to understand the undercurrents of dissatisfaction and resilience that ran through Willow Falls. As she spent more time with the locals, Emily also began to quietly investigate her father's plans for expansion into the area. Accessing public records under the guise of her research, she uncovered alarming plans for a large-scale retail development on the outskirts of town, one that would undoubtedly crush the already struggling small businesses. The more she learned, the more conflicted she became. On one hand, her heritage was here in this town, in the smiles of people who had known her as a child. On the other, her future was tied to the very business threatening to disrupt these lives. Armed with this information, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just here to observe, she was here to effect change. But to do that, she would need allies, and she knew just the person to start with: Sarah. Her next step was to bring Sarah into her confidence, hoping that her friend's influence and local respect could help sway public opinion in favor of preserving the town's character. As the festival approached, Emily prepared to reveal her findings to Sarah, unsure of how they would be received, but certain that transparency was the only way forward. The festival, with its spirit of community and celebration, would be the perfect backdrop for such a revelation, a chance to remind everyone what was truly at stake. Emily's efforts to embed herself within Willow Falls and uncover the extent of the threats it faces set the stage for deeper engagements and potential alliances. Her plan to confide in Sarah introduces the possibility of bridging personal connections with professional resolve, aiming to combat the looming corporate intrusion. The crisp autumn air nipped at Emily's cheeks as she strolled down Oak Lane, a nostalgic path lined with towering oaks that blazed with gold and amber leaves. This street, more than any other, held the essence of her childhood in Willow Falls. It was here, among these whispering trees, that she had learned to ride a bike, scraped her knees, and made promises of forever friendship under the wide, hopeful sky. As she passed the old Wilson house, now bearing a new family's name, but still rocking the same creaky swing set, Emily felt a pang of melancholy. This town had given her so much: roots, wings, and memories to last a lifetime. Now, those very roots were threatened by the company that bore her family's name and ironically provided her with the wings to fly away from here. Each step brought a flood of memories, but it also steeled her resolve. She wasn't just back to relive the old days. She was here to ensure there were future days for the kids currently tossing leaves at each other by the sidewalk. Her mission was clear, and her resolve was firm. But the emotional weight of it all was more challenging than she had anticipated. Emily stopped in front of what used to be Mr. Harmon's general store, now shuttered and silent. A "For Lease" sign hung in the dusty window. She pressed her palm against the cool glass, feeling the echo of the past mingling with the stark reality of the present. This was what was at stake: the heart and soul of small-town America, slowly being eroded by faceless corporate giants. Turning away, Emily wiped a stray tear from her cheek and continued her walk. The path she had chosen was fraught with personal and professional peril, but it was the right one, and she would walk it, one painful, purposeful step at a time. The community hall was bustling with activity, the air filled with the scents of pumpkin spice and freshly baked apple pies. It was the final planning meeting for the autumn festival, and Emily had volunteered to help set up. Amidst the chatter and laughter, Councilman Tom Jenkins was holding court. His charismatic presence was undeniable, and his smile seemed to light up the room. Emily watched him interact with the townsfolk, shaking hands and clapping backs with a politician's practiced ease. On the surface, Tom was the epitome of small-town charm and commitment, always ready with a kind word or a helping hand. But Emily's recent discoveries had painted a starkly different picture of the man who was leading the push for corporate expansion into Willow Falls. As the meeting wound down, Tom approached her, his smile broadening. "Emily Walton, right. It's good to see young folks taking an interest in their hometowns. What brings you back to Willow Falls?" His voice was warm, but Emily sensed the calculation behind his gaze. She offered a smile of her own, one that masked the turmoil inside. "Just visiting family and doing some research on small towns, their economies, and how they're handling modern challenges." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "Well, we certainly have our share of challenges here, but we're always looking for ways to invigorate the economy, bring in new businesses, you know." Emily kept her expression neutral, her heart pounding. "I've heard about the new developments. It must be exciting to see the town growing." "Oh, it is," Tom replied, his eyes lighting up. "And it's necessary. Without growth, towns like ours risk fading away. We need to adapt to survive." His words echoed the corporate line, and Emily felt a chill run down her spine. Here was the man who could charm an entire town into surrendering its character. She needed to expose his duplicity, but she also needed to be careful. Winning over Willow Falls would require more than just revealing truths. It would require showing them there was a better way to grow, one that didn't involve sacrificing their soul. As Tom excused himself to greet another group of volunteers, Emily's resolve hardened. She would start by gaining Sarah's trust and support. Together, perhaps they could turn the tide, steer Willow Falls away from the precarious path it was on, and toward a future that honored its past. Emily's nostalgic journey through Willow Falls strengthens her resolve to protect the town, while her interaction with Tom Jenkins at the community hall underscores the urgency of her mission. Next, we will explore how Emily begins to gather evidence and build strategic alliances, starting with her attempt to bring Sarah fully into her confidence. With the autumn festival drawing closer, Emily's days in Willow Falls were busier than ever. Between volunteering for festival preparations and conducting her undercover research, she found herself immersed in the community like never before. Yet her true mission, to gather concrete evidence of the planned corporate expansion and its potential damages, weighed heavily on her mind. Utilizing her skills honed in business school, Emily began to document every interaction and transaction related to the big retail chain's influence in the town. She attended town council meetings under the guise of her research, taking meticulous notes on discussions about local economy and new business developments. One afternoon, Emily set up a meeting with the local Chamber of Commerce under the pretense of understanding small-town business dynamics. The Chamber's president, Mr. Douglas, was a middle-aged man with a deep love for Willow Falls and a wariness of outsiders. Emily approached the conversation carefully, framing her questions to focus on the impact of national chains on local businesses. "The thing is," Mr. Douglas explained, leaning back in his creaky office chair, "these big stores come in with their lower prices and extensive advertising. It's hard for small businesses to compete. We've lost 3 shops this year alone." Emily recorded his words, her mind racing. This was the kind of first-hand account that could illustrate her point effectively. She thanked Mr. Douglas for his insights, promising to share her findings once her project was completed. As she left the Chamber of Commerce, Emily felt a mix of triumph and trepidation. She had gathered significant evidence, but the real challenge lay in presenting it in a way that would resonate with the townspeople without exposing her personal connection to the Walton Empire just yet. Armed with a growing body of evidence, Emily knew that the next step was crucial: building alliances within Willow Falls. She decided to start with Sarah, trusting that her old friend's influence and respect in the community could be pivotal. One evening, as they were setting up decorations for the festival in the town square, Emily pulled Sarah aside. The autumn air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Festival lights twinkled overhead, casting a warm glow on their serious faces. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something important," Emily began, her voice low. "And I've been doing a lot of research, and I've discovered plans for a large retail development here. It's not public yet, but it will have serious repercussions for Willow Falls." Sarah's brow furrowed, her earlier suspicions reigniting. "What kind of repercussions?" she asked, her tone cautious but curious. Emily shared the evidence she had gathered, from the potential closure of local shops to the loss of the town's unique character. "I believe we can do something about it," she continued. "I think there's a way to rally the community to propose alternative development plans that preserve what makes Willow Falls special." Sarah listened intently, the initial shock giving way to a dawning resolve. "I knew something was off with all the council's closed-door meetings lately," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "I'm with you, Emily. Let's figure this out. Together." Buoyed by Sarah's support, Emily felt a renewed sense of hope. They spent the rest of the evening discussing strategies, planning how to present the information to the community in a way that would galvanize rather than frighten. As the night deepened and the square emptied, Emily and Sarah stood beneath the glowing festival lights, their plan taking shape in the shadows. They agreed to meet again after gathering more support from other business owners and to use the festival as a launching pad for their campaign. Together, they could change the course of their town's future. And for Emily, this was just the beginning of redefining her family's legacy, one that could be rooted in preservation and respect rather than unchecked expansion. Emily's successful evidence gathering and the alliance formed with Sarah set the stage for broader community engagement. As they plan to use the upcoming festival as a platform to raise awareness and rally support, Emily prepares to face the biggest challenge yet, bringing the community together for a common cause. The festival preparations were in full swing, and Emily's involvement in the community had never been deeper. Her days were filled with meetings, decoration sessions, and strategy talks with Sarah. Their plan was starting to take shape, and the momentum was building. Emily felt a cautious optimism, but she also knew that secrecy was paramount, at least for a little longer. As she was leaving a late-night planning session at the community center, a figure detached itself from the shadows near her car. Heart pounding, Emily braced herself for confrontation, but her anxiety eased when she recognized the man stepping into the dim light of the street lamp. "Derek," Emily said, surprised. Derek Johnson was a former classmate and now worked as a reporter for the local newspaper. He grinned, his familiar, easygoing nature momentarily disarming Emily's initial shock. Emily Walton, back in town and stirring things up. "I heard you've been pretty active with the festival," Derek commented, his tone light but probing. Emily tensed, aware of the implications. "Just trying to give back to the community," she replied carefully, not wanting to reveal too much. Derek nodded, though his eyes were sharp, missing nothing. "There's a rumor going around that you're digging into more than just festival decorations. Care to comment?" Emily weighed her options quickly. Derek could be a valuable ally if he was on their side, or a complication if not. Deciding that honesty, framed the right way, might serve her better, she took a breath. "I'm working on a project about small towns managing economic challenges. It's nothing sensational, if that's what you're looking for," Emily offered, hoping to steer the narrative. Derek's smile suggested he wasn't entirely fooled, but he nodded. "Sounds interesting. Maybe I could feature your project in the paper. Give it some positive coverage." Relieved, Emily agreed to an interview, setting it up for after the festival. As Derek left, she felt a mix of relief and renewed anxiety. Her project was attracting attention, and it was becoming harder to keep under wraps. She knew the real challenge was still ahead, the festival itself. With the festival only days away, tension in Willow Falls was palpable. Emily's dual role as both organizer and undercover investigator was becoming increasingly complex. Her evenings were spent in hushed conversations with Sarah and other key allies they had quietly brought on board. The plan was to reveal the threat of the corporate expansion during the festival, turning it into a rallying cry for preserving the town. The night before the festival, Emily received a tip from one of her new allies about a secret meeting at the town hall. It was late, but the urgency in the message was clear. Grabbing her coat, Emily hurried out, her camera and notebook tucked away in her bag. She arrived just in time to see several cars parked discreetly around the back. Slipping inside, she found a vantage point in the shadows of the upper gallery. Below, Councilman Tom Jenkins, along with several unfamiliar faces, likely executives from her father's company, were setting up for what looked like a very unofficial and very private meeting. Emily's heart raced as she recorded their conversation, the voices echoing softly in the wood-paneled room. The discussion centered on timelines for the expansion, incentives for the council, and strategies to handle local opposition. Emily felt a chill as she realized the depth of the betrayal to the community. Armed with this damning evidence, Emily knew the festival would be the perfect moment for exposure. She could almost feel the course of the future changing, her resolve hardening. This was bigger than just a fight against a retail giant. It was a fight for the soul of Willow Falls. As she left the town hall, the pieces of their plan solidifying in her mind, Emily knew the next day would be decisive. The festival would be the stage for revealing the truth and for the community to decide its own fate. With her evidence and the community's spirit, they had a fighting chance. The stakes are set high as Emily prepares for the pivotal moment at the autumn festival. With crucial evidence in hand and the community's future hanging in the balance, the stage is set for a dramatic revelation. The morning of the autumn festival dawned clear and crisp, with a golden haze settling over Willow Falls like a promise. The streets buzzed with excitement as vendors set up their stalls and decorations fluttered in the gentle breeze. Emily, her nerves tightly coiled, was everywhere at once, checking arrangements, speaking with volunteers, and keeping a close eye on the mood of the town. Amid the bustling activity, she made her way to the central square, where Sarah was coordinating the setup of the main stage. The square was transformed into a vibrant hub with banners proclaiming the festival theme, celebrating Willow Falls, past, present, future. It was here that Emily planned to make her stand, using the theme as a poignant reminder of what was at stake. "Everything looks fantastic, Sarah," Emily commented, trying to keep her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Sarah glanced at her, a wry smile playing on her lips. "You ready for this, Emily? Today could change everything." Emily nodded, her resolve firming. "It has to. After tonight, everyone will know the truth, and hopefully we can steer this town towards a better future." Their preparations were meticulous, with information packets hidden beneath the registration tables and a projector set up for the evening presentation that would expose the planned corporate expansion. As the square filled with townspeople, Emily felt the weight of their expectations and the burden of her secrets. As the festival kicked into full swing, Emily's phone vibrated in her pocket, the sharp buzz startling her amidst the laughter and music. Stepping away into the shadow of a nearby alley, she answered the call, her heart sinking as she recognized her father's number. "Emily!" Her father's voice was cold, clipped. "I hear you've been quite busy in Willow Falls. Stirring up trouble, are we?" Emily steadied her breathing, striving to keep her voice calm. "I'm just trying to do what's right, Dad. The plans for the expansion, it's going to hurt a lot of people here." There was a pause, and when her father spoke again, his voice was hard as stone. "You're jeopardizing everything we've worked for, Emily. You need to stop this nonsense now, or there will be consequences." The threat hung heavy in the air, and Emily clenched her fists, feeling the last ties to her old life straining under the weight of her convictions. "I can't do that. I won't let this town suffer just to line our pockets." "Consider this your final warning," her father said, and then the line went dead. Shaken, Emily leaned against the cool brick of the alley, letting the shadows envelop her for a moment of respite. She knew her actions could lead to personal and professional fallout, but the course was set, and she couldn't turn back now. Regaining her composure, Emily returned to the festival, her determination renewed. The stakes were higher than ever, and it was up to her to ensure that her father's threats did not sway her from the path she knew was right. The festival preparations are complete, setting the stage for Emily's crucial revelation. Amidst personal threats and professional risks, Emily is poised to expose the corporate expansion plans to the community, hoping to unite them in preserving their town. As the day progressed, Emily could feel the undercurrents of unease threading through the festival's cheerful facade. Rumors, fueled by her recent activities and her family's notorious reputation, began to weave a complex tapestry of suspicion among the attendees. Whispers flitted from one group to another, painting Emily as either a savior or a harbinger of unwanted change. Emily caught snippets of conversations as she passed by clusters of locals, their voices dipped low. "That's the Walton girl, right? Heard she's been snooping around, asking a lot of questions." Another countered, "Maybe she's here to help, or maybe she's just like the rest of them, out for what she can get." This whisper campaign was both a hindrance and a confirmation that her efforts were being noticed. Emily knew she needed to address these rumors head-on. With the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the festival, she sought out Sarah for a quick strategy meeting. "We need to accelerate our timeline," Emily said, urgency lacing her voice as they huddled near the food stalls. "The rumors are getting out of hand. If we don't control the narrative soon, it could undermine everything we're trying to accomplish." Sarah nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Let's do it during your speech tonight." "We'll lay everything out, clear the air, and show them there's a way to fight this together." They parted ways, each returning to their tasks with renewed focus, preparing for what could be the most defining night of the festival and of Willow Falls' future. The atmosphere was electric as the evening drew in, with hundreds of Willow Falls residents gathered around the main stage. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, casting a warm glow over the faces in the crowd, reflecting a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Emily stepped up to the podium, her hands steady despite the turmoil swirling within her. She greeted the crowd, her voice clear and resonant through the speakers. "Tonight, I want to talk about our town's future, about the challenges we face and the choices we have before us." She proceeded to unveil the details of the corporate expansion plans, the projected impact on local businesses, and her own connection to the Walton family. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as connections were made, pieces falling into place. Then Emily presented the evidence she had gathered, documents and plans that detailed the extent of the corporate takeover. The crowd's restlessness turned to anger as the reality of the situation became undeniable. But it was Sarah's next move that solidified the night's narrative. Stepping forward, Sarah interjected, "We've been friends for years, and I know Emily. She's one of us. She's fighting for Willow Falls, not against it. We need to stand with her now, more than ever." The endorsement from a respected local like Sarah turned the tide. Nods of agreement followed, and the sense of betrayal that had initially tinged the air began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning unity. As the meeting concluded, many approached Emily, shaking her hand, offering thanks, and expressing their support. The initial seeds of doubt planted by the Whisper campaign had been countered effectively by transparency and trust that Emily hoped would continue to grow as they prepared to take action against the corporate giants. The festival night ends with a strengthened community spirit and a clear direction forward. Emily's revelations and Sarah's support have rallied the town, setting the stage for the forthcoming challenges as they prepare to resist the corporate expansion. As the community's newfound solidarity is tested, Emily faces not only the external threat of her family's corporation, but also the internal dynamics of a town in transition. The morning after Emily's revelation at the festival, Willow Falls awoke with a sense of purpose that hadn't been felt in years. The townspeople were now united in a common cause, fueled by the urgency to protect their community from the looming corporate takeover. Emily and Sarah used this momentum to organize a town hall meeting, inviting all local business owners and concerned citizens to discuss strategies and form a collective response. At the town hall, Emily opened the meeting with a recap of the previous night's disclosures and emphasized the need for a coordinated effort. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared, addressing the packed room. "Together, we can choose the path of preservation and independence, or we can let our town be swallowed by faceless corporations. It's our choice and our fight." The response was spirited, with many expressing their readiness to contribute. Plans were quickly laid out: a petition against the corporate expansion, fundraising events to boost local business, and a media campaign to garner broader support. Emily and Sarah also proposed setting up a legal fund to challenge any zoning changes or permits that the corporation might seek. Local lawyer, James Hendricks, offered his services pro bono, adding legal weight to their resistance. "We'll make sure every legal avenue is explored and used to our advantage," he assured the crowd, his voice firm and convincing. As the meeting progressed, Emily could see alliances forming, ideas taking shape, and a community rediscovering its strength. It was a profound transformation, and at the heart of it all, Emily felt a deep, resolute pride in her hometown. Weeks passed, and the town's efforts began to show results. The petition garnered thousands of signatures. Local media outlets were covering their story, and public sentiment was overwhelmingly in favor of preserving Willow Falls. However, Emily knew the real battle was yet to come. Her fears were confirmed when she received a tip about a covert meeting between Tom Jenkins and representatives from her father's company. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily and Derek, the local reporter who had become an invaluable ally, decided to investigate. Late one evening, they discreetly followed Tom to a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of town. From a safe distance, they watched as Tom met with corporate executives, their discussion evidently intense. Derek's long-range microphone picked up snippets of conversation about accelerating the expansion and undermining the town's legal challenges. With this damning evidence of Tom's duplicity, Emily knew they had the leverage they needed. She and Derek quickly planned a series of exposés, detailing Tom's betrayal and the corporation's aggressive tactics. When the articles hit, the impact was immediate and explosive. The community rallied even more fiercely, and calls for Tom's resignation echoed throughout the town. The corporate executives, now wary of the increasing public scrutiny and legal complexities, began to reconsider the feasibility of their plans. Emily watched as Tom, once a respected leader, was forced to step down in disgrace. It was a bitter victory, tempered by the knowledge of how close they had come to losing everything. With Tom Jenkins exposed and the corporate interests re-evaluating their strategy, Emily and the community of Willow Falls are emboldened to continue their fight. As they prepare for the next phase, securing a sustainable future for the town, the challenges remain daunting, but the path forward is clearer, driven by unity and a shared vision for preservation. As Willow Falls approached the eve of another significant festival, this one meant to celebrate their unity and resilience in the face of corporate pressure. The town was abuzz with a different kind of energy. This festival was not just a celebration, but a declaration of independence and strength. Emily walked through the bustling preparations, feeling a mix of pride and anticipation. She met Sarah at the newly erected stage in the town square, where final sound checks were being conducted. The festival would serve as a public showcase of what they had achieved and a platform to solidify their commitment to fighting the corporate takeover. "Can you believe we've come this far?" Sarah asked, handing Emily a stack of flyers for the event. "It's incredible," Emily replied, scanning the crowd of volunteers. "But tomorrow is more than just a festival. It's a statement. We're not just fighting to keep our town the way it is. We're showing that we can evolve without losing our soul." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The weight of their achievements and the challenges yet to come kept her mind racing. She reviewed their strategy for the upcoming weeks, focusing on strengthening community ties and continuing to engage with the media to keep their struggle in the public eye. The day of the festival dawned clear and bright. Emily, dressed in a Willow Falls t-shirt emblazoned with the slogan "Unity in Community," joined Sarah and other key organizers as they opened the event. The town square was alive with color and sound, filled with locals and visitors who had come to support their cause. As Emily walked among the booths and displays, each showcasing local crafts, foods, and music, she felt a profound connection to her community. This was what they were fighting for, a vibrant, thriving town that valued its roots and its people. Mid-morning, Emily took to the stage to address the crowd. She spoke passionately about the journey they had all embarked on together, the victories they had achieved, and the road still ahead. Her words resonated with the audience, their cheers and applause echoing through the square. Today, we celebrate not just our heritage, but our determination to forge a future on our own terms, Emily declared, her voice amplifying across the crowd. Together, we have shown what it means to stand up and protect what matters most. The festival continued into the evening, a joyous affair that strengthened the bonds of the community. Local bands played, children danced, and the air was thick with the aroma of home-cooked food. It was a perfect encapsulation of the town's spirit, a spirit that had been galvanized by adversity. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Emily stood beside Sarah, watching their town celebrate. They shared a smile, a moment of quiet recognition of how far they had come and how far they still had to go. With the festival serving as a vibrant testament to their unity and resolve, Emily and the community of Willow Falls are now more prepared than ever to face the continuing challenges from corporate pressures. As they look to the future, they plan to leverage their newfound solidarity to enact lasting changes that preserve the town's character and independence. As the festival wound down, a sense of accomplishment swept through Willow Falls, but Emily knew that the real confrontation was just beginning. The next morning, a town meeting was scheduled to discuss the implications of the corporation's response to their movements. Rumors had circulated that the corporate executives wanted to negotiate terms, seeing the town's unified stance as a formidable barrier to their plans. In the town hall, the atmosphere was charged with tension and expectation. Emily sat at the front, flanked by Sarah and James Hendricks, the lawyer. The room filled rapidly, the townsfolk's faces a mixture of determination and concern. When the meeting commenced, Emily rose to speak. "Today, we decide how to move forward," she began, her voice steady. "We have shown that we are strong together, and now we face our biggest challenge yet." Just then, the doors at the back of the hall burst open, and a group of corporate representatives walked in, led by none other than Emily's father. The crowd murmured, turning to watch as he made his way to the front. "Emily," her father started, his tone conciliatory, "we've seen what you and the town have accomplished here. We're prepared to discuss alternatives to our original plans." Emily looked around at the gathered townspeople, seeing in their eyes a mix of wariness and cautious hope. "We're listening," she replied, giving the floor to her father. The discussion that unfolded was intense. Proposals were debated, with Emily and the community pushing for significant concessions that would limit the size of any development and ensure support for local businesses. By the end of the meeting, a tentative agreement had been drafted, subject to further negotiations. Emily felt a mix of relief and vigilance, knowing that the agreement was just the beginning of a new phase of advocacy and watchfulness. In the days following the town meeting, the mood in Willow Falls was one of guarded optimism. Emily spent her time coordinating follow-up actions, ensuring that the terms of the tentative agreement were being adhered to and planning for the long-term sustainability of their resistance. However, an unexpected call from her father one evening brought new tensions. "Emily, the board is not happy with the concessions we're making," he warned. "You need to convince the town to accept a more favorable compromise, or the entire deal could fall apart." The weight of his words hung heavy on Emily. The threat was clear: comply or face escalated conflict. She pondered the ultimatum, knowing that bending too far would undermine everything they had fought for. That night, unable to sleep, Emily walked through the quiet streets of Willow Falls. The town had come so far, and now so much rested on what happened next. She knew the coming days would test their resolve more than ever. Standing under the soft glow of a street lamp, Emily made a decision. She would not back down. She would rally the town, prepare them for the possibility of renewed corporate pressure, and fight with even greater determination. As dawn broke, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold, Emily returned home, her resolve solidifying into a plan. They had won battles, but the war for Willow Falls' soul was just beginning. With the corporate ultimatum hanging over their heads, Emily and Willow Falls face critical decisions about their future. The community's unity and resilience are about to be tested in ways they never anticipated. As they prepare for further negotiations and possible confrontations, the stakes are higher than ever. The air in Willow Falls was thick with anticipation on the morning of the decisive town hall meeting. Emily, who had spent the previous night strategizing with Sarah and James, felt a calm determination as she approached the podium. Today would define the future of Willow Falls, and she was ready to lead her community through this final hurdle. The hall was packed, the faces of the townspeople reflecting a mix of anxiety and resolve. Emily greeted them, her voice resonant and clear. Today, we make a choice. Not just for our town, but for every small town facing the overwhelming force of corporate giants. We decide if we accept compromise or stand firm for our values and our way of life. As she spoke, her father and a team of corporate executives entered the hall. The room fell into a tense silence. Emily acknowledged them with a nod, then continued, "We have negotiated in good faith, and we've made our position clear. This town will not be overrun. We demand respect for our community and our local businesses." The negotiations that followed were intense. Emily, supported by her community, argued passionately for terms that would protect Willow Falls from exploitation. Her father, visibly frustrated but also visibly proud, finally conceded more ground than the corporation had initially intended. At the end of the meeting, a new agreement was reached, one that significantly limited the scale of corporate development and guaranteed substantial support for local businesses. The crowd erupted into cheers as the meeting adjourned, the relief and joy palpable in the air. Emily felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had safeguarded their town's future and set a precedent for others to follow. In the days following the town hall meeting, the spirit of victory was tempered with the responsibility of implementing the new agreement. Emily worked tirelessly with the town council and local business leaders to ensure that every clause of the agreement was enacted faithfully. The community's response was overwhelmingly positive. Local businesses saw a surge in support from residents, invigorated by their collective triumph. Emily and Sarah organized community workshops and meetings to discuss further steps in economic development and preservation of the town's unique character. One afternoon, as Emily walked through the town square, she was approached by a group of residents. They thanked her for her courage and leadership, expressing their deep appreciation. "You've not just saved our businesses, you've revived our community spirit," one of them said, shaking her hand. Emily felt a rush of emotions. This journey had started as a mission to confront her family's corporate practices, but it had grown into something much larger, a movement to protect the heart and soul of community life. As she stood there, chatting with the townspeople, Emily realized that Willow Falls was no longer just her hometown. It was a symbol of resistance and hope, a beacon for small towns everywhere facing similar battles. With the community solidly behind the new agreement, Emily's leadership has revitalized Willow Falls and inspired other communities. As they move forward, implementing the changes and strengthening their local economy, Emily plans for the future, knowing that the road ahead will still have challenges but also filled with opportunities. As the new agreement began to take effect, Emily focused on strengthening the bonds within Willow Falls, not just as a bulwark against external threats, but as a means to foster a vibrant, self-sustaining community. She initiated a series of town workshops aimed at empowering local entrepreneurs with new skills and resources to innovate and expand their businesses sustainably. One such workshop was held in the community center, where local business owners gathered to learn about digital marketing and e-commerce, a way to extend their reach beyond the town without sacrificing their unique local charm. Emily watched as attendees eagerly soaked up the information, their faces alight with ideas and possibilities. Later, Emily met with the town council to discuss infrastructure improvements that could enhance the town's appeal as a destination for eco-tourism and cultural events. "We have a chance to redefine what our town stands for," Emily told the council. "Let's make Willow Falls synonymous with community-driven success." These initiatives not only helped bridge the gap between old resentments and new collaborations, but also laid the foundation for a robust local economy, less susceptible to external pressures. While community development initiatives took root, Emily and James Hendricks kept a close watch on the legal aspects of the corporate agreement. They established a watchdog group to monitor corporate activities and ensure compliance with the terms negotiated. One evening, James called Emily with an update. "The corporation has submitted new plans for their development project, and I think they're testing the waters to see if we're still vigilant," he explained. Emily and James reviewed the plans in detail, noting several areas where the proposals slightly exceeded the agreed limits. Armed with this information, they prepared a formal response, insisting on adherence to the original agreement and threatening legal action if necessary. The corporation, wary of further public relations disasters and legal entanglements, quickly amended their plans to comply fully with the agreement's terms. This victory reinforced the community's resolve and demonstrated that their vigilance could yield tangible results. "It's about setting a precedent," Emily remarked during a community meeting to discuss the issue. "Every time we hold them accountable, we reinforce the standards we expect them to meet. It's not just about winning a battle, it's about maintaining our autonomy." With the town's initiatives bearing fruit and the legal framework holding strong, Emily's efforts have fortified Willow Falls against future corporate overreach. As they celebrate these successes, the community also reflects on the ongoing need for vigilance and unity to protect their way of life. With the legal battles stabilizing and the town's economic initiatives gaining momentum, Emily spearheaded the creation of a new foundation dedicated to supporting small towns across the country facing similar challenges. The Willow Falls Foundation aimed to provide resources, legal advice, and a platform for sharing successful strategies to resist corporate encroachments. During the foundation's inaugural meeting, Emily addressed a group of local leaders and activists gathered in the town hall. "What we've achieved in Willow Falls shouldn't be an exception, it should be a blueprint," she declared, outlining the foundation's mission. "Did we have an opportunity to lead by example and help other communities maintain their identity and independence?" The foundation quickly garnered support, attracting attention and funding from various non-profit organizations and philanthropists who were eager to back grassroots movements committed to sustainable development and community empowerment. As the foundation grew, Emily organized a series of regional workshops, bringing together community leaders from various towns to share experiences and strategies. These workshops cultivated a network of small towns, each inspired by Willow Falls' story, each adapting the lessons to their unique contexts. Months had passed since Emily first stood up to her family's corporation, and as she walked through the thriving streets of Willow Falls, she reflected on the profound changes the town, and she herself, had undergone. The once threatened local shops were now bustling with customers, many of whom had become staunch advocates for buying local. Emily spent her days overseeing the foundation's operations, working closely with Sarah and other community leaders to ensure that the momentum they had built continued to grow. Her relationship with her father, though strained, had begun to heal slowly as he came to respect her commitment and the positive impact of her actions on the community. One evening, at a community celebration in the town square, Emily was surprised by an announcement. The mayor, with a broad smile, proclaimed the day as Emily Walton Day in honor of her contributions to Willow Falls. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Emily was deeply moved, her eyes brimming with tears. As I stand here today, I am reminded of why we fought so hard, Emily said to the gathered crowd, her voice filled with emotion. We did it not just to save our town, but to reaffirm our values, community, integrity, and resilience. These are the values that will guide us forward, no matter what challenges we may face. The celebration continued into the night, with music, laughter, and dancing. Emily felt a deep connection to everyone there, a shared bond forged through adversity and triumph. As she looked around at the joyful faces, she knew that while the road ahead might still hold challenges, Willow Falls was ready to meet them with the same courage and unity they had shown all along. As autumn returned to Willow Falls, painting the town in hues of orange and gold, Emily contemplated the changes of the past year. What had started as a fight to save her hometown had blossomed into a broader crusade to empower small towns across the nation. The Willow Falls Foundation had become her life's work, and she was ready to hand over the local reins. She organized a farewell event, not just for herself, but to celebrate the new leaders of Willow Falls who would continue the work she had started. The community center was filled with friends, family, and fellow activists, all gathered to mark a new chapter for both Emily and the town. Willow Falls has taught me so much about the power of community and the strength of a united voice, Emily addressed the crowd, her heart full of mixed emotions. While I'll be focusing on spreading our message and supporting other towns, I leave knowing that Willow Falls is in capable hands. The evening was bittersweet. There were tears and laughter, stories shared of the past year's struggles and triumphs. Emily felt a profound sense of peace, knowing she had ignited a change that would continue to grow, even in her absence. In the weeks that followed, Emily transitioned her responsibilities to a carefully chosen group of local leaders. She spent her last days in Willow Falls meeting with each successor, offering advice, sharing insights, and reinforcing the importance of vigilance and proactive leadership. On her final day in town, Emily took a long walk through the places that had defined her journey. The town square, the community center, and the local park where the annual festival had galvanized the town's resolve. Each spot held memories of hard-won victories and the faces of people who had stood by her. As she stood by the river that ran through the town, Emily threw a small stone into the flowing water, watching the ripples expand outward, much like the impact of Willow Falls' story had spread. She smiled, content in the knowledge that she was leaving the town stronger and more united than when she had arrived. Before leaving, Emily left behind a time capsule to be opened by future generations of Willow Falls. It contained newspaper clippings of their fight, personal letters from key figures in the resistance, and a flash drive with digital records of meetings, speeches, and community events. This was her legacy, a testament to the power of standing up for one's beliefs and the collective strength of a community. Driving out of Willow Falls, Emily didn't look back. Ahead lay new challenges and new communities to help, but in her heart, Willow Falls would always be home. The place where she learned that even one person's courage could alter the course of history. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing to our channel and supporting us through the thanks button.